things rugby. Christy Doran, Raw out of Brisbane. Happy New Year. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Yeah, great to join you, Marty.
Look, he's one of our favourite Aussies. He's such a great friend of the show, so generous with his time. And I want to say congratulations as well, man. New little man in your family. How beautiful.
Yeah, thanks. It's an exciting time and, not as much sleep at the moment.
No. Is he doing everything that he's meant to be doing?
He's not picking up a rugby ball yet, so hopefully that comes in due time.
Well, look, because you give us so much airtime, we can actually make a special dispensation here. You can whisper in his ear quietly, look, if the green and gold don't work out, mate, I've got a nice black jersey with a silver fern on it waiting for you,
okay? Yeah, something like that, sure.
So you're not going to point him in the league direction? He's certainly going to be a rugby man?
Oh, I bloody hope so, mate, yeah. And, why not? You get to go to places like we did to Paris last year.
There you go, yeah. And experience what we experienced last year, which was just an absolutely wonderful World Cup. Every time I think about it, man, I got a big smile on my face. And not even bitter and twisted about the result in the final, Christy. I thought in the end that they were a better team.
Yeah, better team. There's always ifs and buts and opportunities, and I just keep coming back to even Etzebeth when he was on his own try line and he prevented a guy from the French that would have seen them go 12-0 up. And I thought, there's no way coming back if Etzebeth's in the sin bin. And that's way back in the quarterfinal stages. So it's funny how you just think about the little moments in World Cups that can, in the end, a Webb Ellis Cup.
Well, speaking of which, and you are hosting this event, of course, in 2027. Now, there's a small matter of a Lions tour in 2025, and the Lions have already announced their coach. Where are we at with who's going to be in charge of the Wallabies?
It's a great question, and I wrote a story on one of my first days back last week going, what's the hold-up? Because at the moment, New Zealand Rugby's got just put together an outstanding All Blacks coaching team, haven't they? With Scott Robinson coming in there, has obviously had months and months of preparation to get who he wants. And you look at across the ditch, and whilst the All Blacks are having training camps, we're no closer yet to having a Wallabies coach. There's no general manager. There's no team manager. There's no assistant coaches. There's no money. It's quite a concerning aspect about where Australian rugby is at the moment. And given the Lions have already named their coach, it's less than 18 months away. This is one of the campaigns, one of the tournaments that Rugby Australia's pinned their hat on about getting money back into the game, hopefully turning a new page, and bringing back some faith in Australian rugby. It's so important to get this next Wallabies coach and name them soon enough so that they can bring some confidence back into the game. You can start selling your sponsorships, you can start selling headlines, and then therefore hopefully getting some more people to come up to the seats in Super Rugby, which is fast around the corner as well. So where are we at? We're at a process where there's probably a couple of candidates, and Rugby Australia has got to sort out which one it is. I think that process has been completed. It was kind of infamously on LinkedIn. But I think Joe Schmidt is the favourite at the moment. There's probably one or two Aussies that are in the mix, but I think all roads at the moment are leading to Joe Schmidt.
So Phil Waugh is the new CEO. He commands a lot of respect. David Nusafora, who we all know here in New Zealand, of course, he coached the Blues, but more as a Brumbies coach and his involvement with the Wallabies. He's on board in an advisory role. Stephen Larkham was the name that we all talked about last year. Is he still the front runner from an Australian perspective, as if you want an Aussie coach?
Bernie Larkham's got a lot of commands, a lot of respect for his deeds on the playing field. The jury's still out. Everyone that I speak to, the jury's still out on him as a head coach, whether or not his personality fits to being a head coach, how's his communication, and I hear it's improved markedly from what it was back last decade since he's returned from a couple of years in Munster. I think he's applied for it. I don't think he's necessarily going to be right at the pointy end of this conversation. they've got to think about both short-term and long-term, does Rugby Australia, because for too long it's been kind of short-term fixes or not necessarily having the stability in place and having the building blocks in place for a head coach to thrive. But on the other hand, a Lions in a World Cup within 4 years, wow, like that's a huge ask and two things that you want to go deep into. So I just get the feeling like Stephen Larkham not going to be in that conversation. Michael Cheika could still be in that conversation. He's a free agent at the moment, having finished up with Argentina. Of course, then again, has enough water gone under the bridge since he ended in a real destructive kind of nature back in 2018, 2019. So I don't think Phil Ward was on the board at the time when Cheika and Raylan Castle had a falling out. And then on the other hand, you've got Dan McKellar up at Leicester, and I think he's still interested. I think he may have softened slightly in terms of his hope or thoughts around coming back to take that role. He's, of course, got another 2.5 years left with Leicester at the moment. And they're the only three Australian candidates. And one of the issues that I keep hearing at the moment is financially, where are they going to get the money for the assistant coaches? How do we build the best team? Because at the moment, Rugby Australia clearly don't have a huge amount of money. The review's been handed in. They've probably looked at that, and it wouldn't have been particularly favourable looking at anyone, including Rugby Australia, how balloons that budget got. So I think the assistant coaching team is going to be made up from Super Rugby coaches, and that's potentially on either side of the ditch as well. There's going to be a heavy Aussie flavour there, particularly if Joe Schmidt becomes the next Wallabies head coach.
All right, finally then, is that who you're picking? Is your money on him?
I think it is who I'm picking, and I've said that for quite a few weeks now. Just David Nucifora is going to have some involvement as an advisor around who the next head coach should be. He's still with Ireland. He'll be with Ireland until the Olympics, but he's going to be adding his 2 cents in. Peter Horn has previously worked with Joe Schmidt. I think there's just too much synergy there for that not to occur. It's whether or not Joe Schmidt really wants it and thinks he can succeed, because not many foreigners have come to Australia and succeeded, and we know how Dave Rennie was treated in the end by the previous administration. Whether or not he has much more confidence now that someone like a Dan Herbert's there as chairman, I'm sure he probably would. I would have preferred to have seen a Dan McKellar come back, but I would be very happy with the Joe Schmidt, and I think a lot of people would. I don't think a Michael Cheika would pass the pub test within Australian rugby. There's too many political factions that would mean that it'd be difficult to get that across the line, including in Queensland.